I have been thinking a lot about sensory stuff. I've been reading a lot on Facebook, a lot of posts recently about people who can smell certain things and people who can't smell certain things. And I'm wondering if there's any connection or correlation between whether these people are neurodivergent or not. I'm wondering whether, because obviously we know that people who have ADHD or on the autism spectrum can be more likely to experience sensory overwhelm. So I'm thinking, does that mean then, logically, we take in more via our senses? Does that mean our senses are more finely attuned? And does that mean that there's any connection between this or not? And I don't know, because I do know that there is. So, for example, the thing about asparagus, there's the, I'm assuming most of you know the asparagus we thing. So whenever people eat asparagus, you can smell it in their urine. Sorry, there is a smell of the asparagus smell in their urine, but not everyone can actually detect this. And that's genetic as to whether you do or not. And I've recently discovered that it's the same with ants. So apparently, I can smell the asparagus smell, but I can't smell ants. And I didn't know that it was a thing until a couple of years ago. And apparently a lot of people can smell ants. And it's something, I think it's due to formic acid in the ants that people are detecting. And again, it's a genetic thing as to whether you can smell it or not. Bit like tongue rolling, I suppose. And this obviously, a lot of these threads then go into what other people can smell, and rain and thunder are common ones that people then move on to. And the rain one is known that it's the petrichor that you can smell in the air, the smell of the wetness. And so this is strongest apparently after rainfall, but you can smell it as the rain approaches you, and I'm assuming it's the petrichor from rainfall that has fallen further away. So as the rainfall or the rainstorm gets closer, the smell of petrichor gets stronger. And most people in my family can smell and feel when rain is coming. It's like, oh, it's going to rain, we better bring the laundry in, or it's going to rain, better take a raincoat. And sometimes you can sense rain, but it doesn't come. And I'm assuming that's when rain has fallen a bit further away, but it's spent, like it's used all its rainfall somewhere at a further location, and then there's none left for you, but you can still smell it from the surrounding areas. And then I started thinking about thunder, because yes, I can smell the ozone smell of thunder. And I remember when I first knew what ozone was. So when I was little, my big brothers had an electric train set, and one of them had this, it was a little black train with an open motor, like you could see the coil turning, the copper coil turning. And it was a very, very distinctive smell that came from my dad, who was a science teacher when he was alive, when he was teaching. Said that it was the smell of ozone, and that's what you could smell with thunder. And I'm very conscious of this, but I'm also aware that it's not just the smells. So I can feel rain, and I don't know what it is that I feel about rain. I don't know whether it's that my body is somehow detecting the changes in humidity or pressure or something. With thunder, I'm positive it's to do with detecting changes in pressure, because when I was little, I used to get nosebleeds before a thunderstorm. So obviously there's something in my head that's very sensitive to pressure. I no longer get nosebleeds, and my son actually had the same when he was little, and now that he's 10, this reaction is starting to fade for him. But then I remembered, obviously lightning is electricity, and I remember that there's a couple of people in my family who can hear electricity, one of my kids included. I can only hear electricity, you know the sound you hear when you're going underneath a pylon, overhead cables, and that crackling sound. Now, I think most people can hear that, but my son can hear it as a constant background hum in our home. And there are other family members who also notice this, they can hear this electricity sound. And I'm wondering whether that's also part of being able to detect an oncoming thunderstorm, whether it's the ability to hear the actual electricity in the air, because for me, the air suddenly feels alive, like it's dancing, and I don't know any other way of explaining it. And it's a glorious feeling. I love the approach of thunder because it makes me feel alive, like I'm dancing inside, and it's a wonderful feeling. But it has made me very curious this morning about how many of our senses are used in detecting the oncoming thunder or the oncoming rain or any of these other kind of felt sensory experiences. because there's an embodiment to this sensory experience. I feel like there's a difference than with other sensory experiences. So you can just look at, I don't know, like if I look at this wood behind me, I can see the colours and the grains. But for me, I mean, as you noticed, I touched it. For me, seeing involves touch. I want to know how it feels when I see something. You know, is this rough? I can see there's a bit of blue tack there. The knots are rougher than the grain. And it makes me wonder about embodiment in terms of a sensory experience. And again, wondering how common this is amongst neurodivergent people, where you feel the whole experience in your body. The senses are somehow so much more absorbing and immersive than it appears to be for other people who have lesser sensory reactions. So this isn't really, I have no tips or strategies here. It's more a pondering and part of my contemplative processes around what it is to be neurodivergent. And I do an awful lot of this. Most of it happens subconsciously, under the surface. And I realised this yesterday when a friend was asking me about an article I wrote. And I was like, well, it was really easy. I didn't have to do a lot of research. And what had happened is I'd spent decades gathering information slowly, and suddenly it all came out the other day. And this is what I do with all things neurodivergent, which again, I see very commonly amongst other neurodivergent people, where the information just slowly comes in, and then suddenly one day when I'm having a shower it all makes sense, or when I suddenly get a need to write it down. And so this video is about part of that process. It's about encouraging you all also to think about your experiences, to let those thoughts, what's the word when you have a pot of food and it's absorbing all the flavours? That, whatever that word is. I can't think what it is. But to let those infuse, something to do with infusing, letting those thoughts and those feelings simmer within you so that everything becomes combined and results in this glorious moment of self-knowledge. Because it's this kind of process that helps us to better understand ourselves, and through better understanding ourselves, we know more fully how to meet our needs and how to find the lives that we deserve to live, how to find our happiness. So I'm going to leave you with that contemplation, that series of contemplations, and hope you all have a fantastic weekend. And I will post again next week. Take care, everyone.